All right, so with us today, we have Luke Garver. He is the IDNR Turkey Project Manager. Welcome, Luke.
Hey, Jason, how's it going? Good to be here.
Oh, it's going great. Getting ready for turkey season coming up here this spring. I got a tag from Middle Fork, so I'm excited about that. It is fifth season, but I've talked to Adam. He hunts out there a lot, so it sounds like I have a good shot of getting out of turkey this year. So yeah, man, we haven't talked to you since May 2020, so it was right after COVID. And just kind of give us an update on what's been going on. How's the turkey's been going?
Yeah, going back to May 2020, that was an interesting season for not just Illinois, but the whole nation. The I get asked every year, what's the prediction for the spring season? In these last 2 years, the question is never easy to answer, but
Sure.
the last 2 years have been extremely difficult. So going into 2020, we were coming off of poor reproduction in the previous year. We had seen a decline in turkey observations through our archery deer hunter survey. And, I had predicted it was going to be a down year, not like a record low or anything, but hey, I think harvest will decline this year was my prediction. And then COVID happened.
Right.
And everybody was a little unsure on how that would affect hunter numbers. And in Illinois, our director's office and governor's office made the decision to actually close public land down, which, much to the chagrin of a lot of public land turkey hunters, and rightfully so. But so we thought, that still it may decline, but what we saw was the exact opposite. We saw people, without all the pressures of their social schedule, they were spending a lot more time in the woods, even though it wasn't on public land. It was a lot more, private land hunters were out there, not just not just hunting more season, but just more days per season and everything. So hunter effort was up quite a bit, and that resulted in a turkey harvest that was the highest we had seen in nearly a decade.
Wow.
And so it was real interesting to see. Other states saw, they were looking at record harvests like at the halfway point of their season. Some of the southeastern states saw an even higher increase. We were up, but it wasn't a record season. And some of that has to do with our season structure is segmented into the 5 season segments in the North and South zone. And then we also have quotas for each county and our public sites. And that kind of insulates us from any over harvest effects or, really high hunter density numbers. And that's part of the design. So while we did see hunter success increase, it was likely because of the same number of hunters or slightly increased spending more time afield, whereas other states, they became an even bigger destination to go to, and public lands were really hit hard, and they saw harvest, in near record numbers or well over record numbers in a lot of cases. So, that, and even though we did see a very high harvest, like I said, it didn't blow the doors off of any records or anything. And, and it's kind of a sign of our season structure working, at its job to kind of prevent the overharvest or, unsafe hunter density numbers and things like that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I came from Pennsylvania, and I remember I wouldn't go hunting on turkey on Pennsylvania on public land because there'd just be too many people out there. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of different than other states, that 5 season and also the lottery for a lot of the public land and stuff. Do you ever see that changing, or do you think it's just working so well with, I mean, like you said, I mean, if it works, then why change it? Or because it is restrictive, but
sure,
it's not a bug. That's the system.
Right. And so we're not the only state to use these segmented seasons. Wisconsin has, we were one of the first ones to do that model. But Wisconsin has a similar type of structure. Iowa kind of has a similar type of structure, but we very often get compared to our neighbors, Missouri and Iowa, or I'm sorry, Indiana, who, you know, they just have an open span of time. So the Missouri comparison is not always fair because, you know, they have a lot more turkey habitat, much higher turkey population, and a lot more public land. And that, you know, that helps them kind of insulate against hunter density and over harvest, you know. So I wouldn't say that any change in our season structure is out of the question, though. I'm always open to hunter input, and you know, if we continue to get a lot of pressure to see changes, if that's what our turkey hunters would like to see, you know, that's definitely a change we'll keep in mind. So in 2019, we did a turkey hunter satisfaction survey and posed those questions. We sent the survey out to 5,000 turkey hunters and had a, you know, I think it's been a while since I've looked at the numbers. I want to say it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 65% return rate, which is pretty good.
Yeah, very good.
You know, it's better than voter turnout, you know? So I thought we had a pretty good representative sample of turkey hunters statewide, and you know, the reviews were pretty mixed, but the overarching questions is what is your satisfaction with the way things are? Generally, folks said, yeah, we like the way things are. That doesn't mean hunters wouldn't be open to some change, and we did ask specific questions about you know, certain changes here or there, and generally hunters were generally favorable to the idea of maybe having a longer time span, a permit that is good for a longer time span generally. Guys were less, or hunters were less apt to say that they really wanted more area to hunt, because you know, Illinois is 97% private land, so generally you've got a place to hunt and that's where you're going to hunt. And even if it's public land, you've got a permit for that particular site. It's not like hunters generally have places to hunt all over the state. And so, you know, any changes we would make would, you know, might be swinging towards making a permit good for a longer span of time. It's definitely, I don't have any plans to make changes immediately, and it's certainly not just my decision. It, you know, it's got to run up the course, and in an ideal world. So my plan when we did that hunter satisfaction survey was that we would follow up with maybe some public meetings and get, you know, some face-to-face input and have some presentations and everything. And then COVID happened and we weren't able to get people in a room. So I definitely have some plans as everybody gets back to normal and we can get together in public groups. I would like to get some follow-up input and especially, you know, in the years following COVID, because that, you know, changes hunter perception. We're seeing turkey hunting become, you know, more and more popular. So I think it warrants some further discussion. So I would not rule out any change. It's not going to happen anytime real soon. But it is a tricky thing in Illinois. Like I said, we're 97% private land. You do have to worry about hunter density and making sure that it's a safe, high quality hunt. And we also, you know, we don't have an endless supply of turkeys. You know, our turkey population isn't as high as our deer, not by a long shot. And so it's not a limitless resource. We have to keep those birds in mind. And so one thing that definitely needs to be considered, if we liberalize our season in any way, which is going to result in a larger number of birds being harvested, we need to consider moving the start date to at or after peak nesting. That's the research has shown that's a conservative way to allow, you know, to kind of maximize harvest a little bit. You push it back to peak nesting time, you know, and that's about when hens are laying their first eggs. And so the idea is that you're allowing most of the breeding to occur before you start taking a lot of toms off the landscape. And currently, our turkey season starts, a week or two before peak nesting, and we think we can get away with that because of the current season structure that prevents a lot of the high density and over harvest out there. So
Sure.
I don't know if that completely answered your question or not, but nothing's off the table. We're always open to input, and I love hearing other ideas, especially from hunters that hunt all over. No two states do it the same. That's what's interesting about turkey hunting in the U.S. is every state's a little bit different, and I don't know if any state has the perfect solution, but everybody's different and everybody has their preferences, and there's definitely a solution out there that can serve to maximize hunter access and hunter satisfaction, as well as conserve the resource. So
yeah, absolutely. I think you just define your job there: hunter satisfaction plus conserving the resource.
Yeah, just as easy as that, right?
Yeah, it's so easy on paper, right? But no, I was just wondering. I know we hear about that a lot from new hunters. They come and they look at the regs and they're like, "What's the point of the 5 seasons?"
Sure.
And then also coming from out of state, from PA, I've been here for 8 years now, so I'm used to it a little bit. But it is still interesting to see how different states manage. And just as you said, not every state has the same environment and same habitat and same population densities. And also you got to remember in Illinois, at the turn of the century in the 1900s, there were no turkeys in Illinois.
Yeah,
so this population is completely different than the Pennsylvania population for sure. And then other states nearby, it's all different. You got to do what you got to do. And as long as you monitor that hunter satisfaction and is in line with that resource, whatever works.
There you go. And when we get compared, it's often to Missouri, and like I said, much higher turkey population, a lot more habitat and public land. We rarely get compared to Indiana, who also has a similar structure to Missouri, where I think it's a 3-week season more or less, but you're only allowed to kill one bird there. And I don't want to speak for all turkey hunters, but I have a feeling that a lot of guys would not be happy with turkey season potentially ending on opening day or the first day you go out. It's, in my mind, we've got a pretty good turkey hunting culture here, and I don't know if that's the answer that hunters are looking for. It's hard this is just taking off my DNR hat, excuse me, and putting on my turkey hunter hat. It's hard to maintain a turkey hunting culture that when the season can only be, it may be as short as 1 or 2 days, if you are successful right off the bat. But nothing's off the table. If folks would prefer more leeway and are willing to just take one bird, that's something we could consider as well.
Not to put you on the spot with this one, but have you seen the data? Like, what do you know with that? You said you're the first state, maybe within the region anyway, to do the 5 seasons. Were you able to see a bump up in harvest or a bump up in turkey recruitment after that was in place?
Yeah, turkey numbers were going through the roof, because when those regs were being set, we were still doing trap and transfer of turkeys. And so those the first few turkey seasons were just in 1 or 2 counties, and only 1,000 permits were given out. But as we were trapping and transplanting birds, and they were doing really well in their new habitats and exploding, that was one of the ways that Department of Conservation, as it was known at the time, had to conserve the resource. They didn't want to go back to the days of the early 1900s where there were virtually no birds. And that was what they came up with to conserve this brand new and thriving turkey population.
So the 5 seasons was from the get-go of starting the season again, and that was recently, right? It was in the 70s that they really started hunting again, right?
Yeah, I think I think 73 was our very first.
So this is pretty recent that we finally were
Yeah,
able to hunt turkeys again. I mean,
right.
you got grandparents in this state that were not turkey hunters.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm from West Central Illinois, and we didn't have populations there until you know as early as the mid '90s, and in some cases the late '90s. And so you know, I definitely was hunting as a young kid in the '90s and never saw any turkeys. But my first turkey hunting season, I think I was 15, and it was still a relatively new thing.
Hmm.
Um, so that is one of the cool things about Illinois is I think we have a good I think we have a great turkey hunting culture, but we're still figuring it out. It's
Hmm.
still a relatively new thing around here compared to a state like Alabama that's they they've got hard grained turkey hunters that have been doing it for generations. We're still figuring out what it means to be an Illinois turkey hunter around here, and I think that's pretty neat.
Cool. All right. Well, that was a bit of a tangent on that one, but so
Sure.
2020, we had some good harvest, and then
Yeah.
just real quick, if you want to give a rundown of how 2021 played out, and then also, were you able to monitor how COVID and shutting down the public lands in 2020 impacted the populations on public land sites? If you saw any change in harvest rates or anything like that, so whatever kind of review you want to give on 2021.
Sure. So 2021, again, difficult question to answer. How's the turkey season going to be in 2021? And we were coming off the momentum of 2020, and and we had seen reproduction the previous season increase, and so I was thinking, hey, maybe we will continue this momentum and maybe not necessarily have as high of a harvest, but maybe it'll be another pretty big one. And instead, we saw the lowest harvest total we'd seen since 2018. So not like a record low, but coming from a season where we had seen the highest in 10 years to the lowest in 3 or 4 years was a big drop from year to year. And some of that, when you take a closer look at the data, while we did see reproduction increase, it was still well below the average. And then we run the archery deer harvest survey, and turkey observations through that had decreased for 2 years in a row. And then we don't have a real good metric of hunter effort besides just permit sales, and we ask from successful turkey hunters, how many days did you hunt on this permit? And so we're not getting a real good estimate on folks who were unsuccessful or across the whole hunting community. But other states that do monitor that well saw a big drop, a higher than average decrease in hunter effort. And there's a million reasons, but one of them is just people just getting back to life as usual, trying to figure out how to get back to their normal social lives. And one of the things to fall out was time spent afield. And so we think there was on top of possibly fewer turkeys on the landscape last year, hunters were spending less time afield too. And so, like I said, it wasn't a record drop or anything, but it was a big drop from year to year.
Mm.
And so, yeah, your next question, any effects from the COVID season or pandemic season of 2020? It's hard to tease out because we saw those declines. You would think maybe public land birds would have seen a big population increase, but if the hunters weren't spending as much time afield, that's a hard thing to measure. And although we did give them a break for 1 year, reproduction being down, there could have still been maybe fewer birds than normal around. So yeah, we haven't taken a real close look at that data, but generally, yeah, it's pretty hard to tease out what effects the COVID, the pandemic season had on our population. My prediction is that pretty minimal, although if guys were we're hammering a lot of jakes and 2-year-old birds. That means fewer for the next year, and so that could have played out as well.
Yeah, these are difficult questions to answer.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at outliers and going from year to year. I mean, you really you're supposed to be asking questions on trends, not really.
Yeah.
So last year this happened, this year this happened type of questions.
Right.
I mean, but I appreciate you trying.
Yeah, what'll be really interesting, you know, and I follow closely is the researchers in the Southeast, and I know that a lot of those managers and researchers are concerned about the potential of overharvest. You know, and like I said, that, you know, they were hitting their record harvest before halfway season in some cases, and it'll be interesting to see what they tease out and if there are any lasting effects from the 2020 season in those states.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, maybe they'll be regulating and having 5-week seasons. No,
Yeah,
five seasons.
We are seeing some states, you know, the Southeast, the culture, a lot of states start well before peak nesting, and they also have very high bag limits, and you are seeing some regulation changes coming in effect. You know, there's many states in the Southeast that are, we think we've had some declines in population more in specific locations, but in the Southeast, generally the turkey populations are on a decline, and in some states it's pretty steep. And on top of that, they continue to see, you know, high hunter numbers. So regulation changes have been in effect, and they're always being considered, try to conserve the natural resources.
So even just talking about, I mean, that was the general population of turkey, but the Illinois turkey population, you want to give kind of an update on what that's looking like? I mean, the past couple of years of hunting has been odd, but like, are we doing good?
Yeah, so statewide, I think our population is pretty stable. You know, our harvest has been, you know, we've had our ups and downs, but we're staying in a relatively stable range. But we definitely think that there have been some declines in certain areas. West Central Illinois being one of them. You know, counties like Pike and Adams that used to be, they are still at the top of in total harvest, but they've seen their harvest drop considerably. And you know, some of that could be land use changes or you know, hunter access and things like that. But I think there's no doubt that there are fewer turkeys in some areas in Illinois than there used to be. Now, in some areas of eastern Illinois, we think the turkey populations continue to increase, and so things kind of have a sense of balancing out. But yeah, in some of the areas that were known as the biggest turkey hotspots of West Central Illinois and even Northwest Illinois, we think populations have declined to some degree, and that's what we're hearing from hunters too. You know, I'm not hearing the gobbling, I'm not seeing the birds that I used to see, and you know, a lot of guys are comparing it to the early to mid 2000s, where, you know, that's when I think the Illinois turkey population really hit its peak. And some of this has been researched in other states that were a little ahead of us in terms of their reintroduction efforts, and that's kind of the response that was predicted to some degree after you oversaturate the habitat with these birds. They're, you know, we're reintroducing turkeys into habitats where they haven't existed in a long time. You saw populations really spike. Those wild caught transplanted birds did really, really well in Illinois, and people who have done this research on these reintroductions over time have seen where these populations hit a peak, and then they fall quite a bit as they reach an equilibrium. And so some of that was predicted. However, what we're concerned about is we think we hit that equilibrium, but there are some indications that the equilibrium is continuing to fall. So it's something that's still playing out. But we're definitely keeping our eye on it. A lot of the the research is showing that reproduction is the big bottleneck in turkey population. So we're just not making as many birds as we used to, and that certainly is played out in Illinois. We monitor. We have a turkey brood survey that we send out to several thousand participants every year, and it's a citizen science, voluntary thing. But folks get postcards and they're asked to write down every turkey observation they have for June, July, and August, and they're asked to count how many hens, how many poults, and how many adult males they see each year, and or each month. And we have seen the big metric that we use is poults per hen. So how many poults are you seeing per hen? And we've seen those numbers decline pretty precipitously over the last 15 years or so. And if you're not making as many turkeys as you used to, but you continue to hunt them hard, you can see some declines. Now it's a lot like harvest, where it's highly variable, and so to really get a look at the trend, you need to step back and look at many years in a row. And so generally we've seen that number decline, but at any given year you can see it spike back up. And what we often see is the year following, or even the 2 years following, if conditions are right, after a high reproduction year, we see harvest increase quite a bit, and we see the percentage of jakes in the harvest go up quite a bit too. And that's an indicator that our brood survey is holding true to what's on the landscape. Is if we see a lot of poults per hen for summer, and then the following spring the number of jakes in the harvest goes up, we know that it was a pretty good reproduction year.
Wow. Do you guys know, I mean, you guys use harvest as kind of that measuring, that thermostat, but when it comes to looking at like the poults and stuff like that, do you know what are the main factors that are influencing that? Are you able to monitor that as well? I mean, is it just habitat, or is it predation? Is it harvest?
Yeah, that's kind of like the cutting edge of research right now. Is it hasn't been too long since we've just been able to identify the bottleneck as being reproduction, and now so Illinois doesn't have a research project specifically looking at that, but I know Missouri's doing it, Iowa's doing it, many southeastern states are doing it, and all of us, we communicate on a monthly, if not weekly basis. Many turkey biologists throughout the country, and through NWTF's technical committee we're all members of. And so that's the cutting edge of the research, is what is at play. Likely it's the death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing. Habitat being a huge one, and brood rearing habitat being the major bottleneck. We think that not just the quantity of brood rearing habitat is decreasing, but the quality of it as well. So poults need these open grasslands with some bare ground and a ton of insects to make it. And they're eating, for the first 2 weeks of their life before they're able to fly, they're eating nearly around the clock, and almost exclusively eating insects. And so they need these open areas with some bare ground, because they're the size of bobwhite quail or smaller, right off the bat. And if things are too thick, then they can't move around, they can't make use of it. If we're spraying pesticides, killing all the insects, they're not able to find any food. If we're mowing it down, obviously it's of no use. So we really need to start thinking of turkeys as the gallinaceous bird they are, as the upland game birds, similar to bobwhite and pheasant. They need very similar habitat needs during those summer months. And we've seen what has happened to our bobwhite and pheasant populations as a result of declining habitat quality and quantity, and so it's unfortunately not a huge surprise that we've seen some decline in turkeys as well. Now, that being said, the habitat thing plays into predators too. You know, while we've seen some declines in turkey populations, we continue to see increases in nest and poult predators such as raccoons, and that's a very sticky, you know, topic to get into, is the predator management side of things. But with, you know, if hens don't have quality nesting habitat and poults don't have quality brooding habitat, it makes things easier for nest predators, and especially if as those habitats get more fragmented, that really plays into the hands of those predators. We don't think that many, you know, the same number of adults have been getting predated for generations, you know, and that's a relatively rare instance. Survival is pretty high on an adult turkey, except for during turkey season. We are by far the number one predator of adult turkeys, followed by great horned owls, excuse me, which is one people don't often consider. But those predators have always played their part, and it's an opportunistic thing. They don't they rarely get enough adult birds to really affect populations. It's when birds are most vulnerable. Nesting hens, their eggs, and the young poults are the ones that we can that we really need to keep our eye on. And in my mind, habitat improvement is the number one way to help this. That's not to say that predator management, trapping, and fur bearer hunting doesn't play a role, because it certainly does, and it likely helped quite a bit in the early days of the reintroduction of the turkey, when fur bearer prices were high and trapping was really popular. But you know, this has been researched over and over across the whole nation, and what they found is that it's very difficult to take enough predators to actually result in any meaningful effect in reproduction of turkeys or many other upland game birds. I would never tell anybody not to trap or fur bearer hunt, because, you know, it's a fun thing to do. It's, you know, great way to spend time outdoors. Just have a realistic expectation of what you're trying to accomplish, and if the only thing you're focusing on is this predator management, and you've done nothing to improve the habitat quality, then the effects on turkey populations are likely to be pretty minimal. But if someone's out there, they're getting prescribed fire on the ground, they're removing invasive bush honeysuckle, and they run a heavy trap line as well, especially as you get closer to the nesting season, you can really do some birds some favors, that's for sure.
No, that's great. Just a side note, have you ever ran into any coon dog hunters, or anyone who goes out at night?
No, not personally.
We had a class in December where we went down to the Sereno Coonhound Dog Club, and they took us out just for a trial run to go out and treat some raccoons and see how they work. These fellas are amazing. I mean, they're older gentlemen, like 50s, 60s, and these guys go out almost every night, and they can do it year round, because you don't need to take the coon. You can still run your dogs and not have to harvest anything. And but there is a harvest season for them, of course, but they barely ever do that. They're more about like the dog trial aspects of it. And I mean, it's like a whole nother type of field trial. I mean, they have a whole culture with it. It's like they give you points on if your dog marks first, and then if it trees first, and then they have these GPS collars on their dogs that they can tell if it's treed or not and where it's at, and they just let them run all over the place. But it is a blast. I mean, I never realized it, never been exposed to it. Saw it on like where the red fern grows and like some media and stuff like that, you know. But it's a blast. It's so much fun. But anyway,
I've messed around with trapping, but I've never got into the dog aspect of it, and I would love to be, you know, exposed to that and be able to tag along. And you know, and you talk about the culture, and these guys have been doing it. That's if we're going to see trapping and nest predator harvest done at a scale that's really going to help turkeys, it's going to take a culture shift. You know, trapping is going to need to be cool again. You know, and we're going to have to find a way to make it cool without the monetary input, you know, of the fur bearer market. Because I'm no economist, but I don't really see that market coming back to where it was in the past. But that being said, I think it's important that we, you know, that we keep pushing it, you know, because it is a great way to spend time outdoors. And if, you know, even if you're not able to take enough predators to, you know, to see huge boons in turkey populations, you can still enjoy yourself doing it. And you know, if we are able to make a big culture shift, perhaps in some instances we are able to help the birds out. You know, it can't hurt. That's for one thing.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, those guys broke a lot of the stereotypes for me. I mean, thinking about the type of person that is a coon dog hunter and it goes out all the time. I mean, they were super nice. I mean, you'd see them in the grocery store, you'd say hi to them. I mean, they weren't like the hill people. And not that there's anything wrong with hill people. I'm just saying they were super nice fellas. Good. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah, it's cool. So it's a cool social type of hunting, you know.
Yeah. I mean, when we asked them to take us out, they're like, yeah, we're going out anyway, you guys can tag along. I mean, they go out every night. There's some guys who sleep like 4 hours, they go work a full shift and then take their dogs out till 3 o'clock in the morning. Love it. It's a level of commitment I've rarely see anymore. It was insane. But anyway, so coming up for 2022, you got with the predictions you've been seeing, the harvest numbers, and then kind of the weather that we had last year and all the other markers that you look at and the factors. What's 2022 looking like?
It's, you know, looking at the last 2 years, I don't even know what to predict. But no, I'm an optimistic person. I think I already mentioned that. And so I go into every year. I'm personally excited about turkey season. I cannot wait to get out there. And, you know, I think it's going to be a great season. I'm looking outside. It's sunny. It's dry. And I think that's got to last throughout the whole season, right? Fingers crossed. But no, that we've got some indications to show that it could be a good season for us. We saw reproduction increase yet again. So we're looking at 2 straight years of increased reproduction. Now, we're still sitting below the long-term average. But looking at the trend, that may be just the new baseline that we live at now. So in the short term, we've seen it increase 2 years in a row. That should result in a higher number of birds than we had seen in the previous years. Now, I don't have the archery deer hunter survey data yet, so I'm not sure how that played out. But in many areas of the state, particularly in Eastern Illinois, reproduction was up because of the big cicada hatch. You know, I don't know. Did you guys see many cicadas in Champaign County over there?
It wasn't as much. I know just in Vermilion, I think right next to us, they got hammered. And then around here, it wasn't insane, but I know right near us, I had friends that live over there that they had some Instagram story videos of just the noise that was coming out over there. And it was insane.
Yeah. So that's one phenomenon that's real interesting and pairs very tightly with reproduction and poult survival. Is when we have these cicada years, poults do awesome. And so, yeah, in Eastern Illinois, our brood surveys were really good. And, you know, and that bleeds out throughout, you know, Central Illinois a little bit too. In states like Indiana that had a full-blown emergence, you know, for most of the state, they saw their record high brood surveys. So, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic that did help out our population, even if it was just in the eastern part of the state. And just anecdotally, I'm seeing a ton of jakes in, multiple areas of the state, which goes into those guys were poults just last summer. And so hopefully going into the season, it's what we're seeing again is a higher number of birds on the landscape. We've got 2024 to really look forward to for the cicada thing though in Illinois, and that's when we have two emergences in the north and south of Illinois, and they kind of overlap a little bit in the middle. And so that'll be the year to really keep your eye on for reproduction. So I have a hard time predicting anything these last couple of years, but I'm predicting spring 2025 is going to be a great year.
All right. That's awesome. So yeah, man, that's so cool that you can correlate all that stuff and see that trend. But all right, man. Anything else you got? So if people are interested in following along with maybe reports you're putting out, just kind of understanding the turkey information of Illinois, where's the spot to go to kind of look up what you're doing and what the population
on our website we have a turkey management website where I post all the annual reports of the spring seasons. We're doing with this brood survey, we're doing a lot more interstate collaboration, and so we're trying to collaborate our data across multiple states and regions to try to see regional and national trends in this brood. And so I'm hoping to be able to put together some good reports, and that's where they will be housed too. I think if you Google Illinois turkey management, it should take you to that page. But if folks are ever interested, we're always looking for more participants in the Illinois turkey brood survey. We take all the help we can get, and it's a super easy thing. We send you 3 postcards, and all you have to do is write down every time you see a turkey. It doesn't matter if it's a single tom, if it's 5 jakes, if it's a hen and 7 poults. You write it down, what county you're in, the day you saw them, and the numbers of each category of turkey you saw. And it really helps us keep an eye on the trends. It's one of the most important pieces of data I use to keep an eye on things. So if you are interested in doing that, feel free to email me at luke.garver@illinois.gov, and I'll get you added to the list.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we'll have the links to those in the description for the video or a podcast wherever we use this at. So yeah, Luke, I really appreciate your time, and have a great season.
Yeah, you too. Good luck in that 5th season. 5th season doesn't get a lot of love, but especially on Illinois public land, I love the 5th season. You have I drew a 5th season tag on a pretty big public land site last season, and I didn't see another hunter out there. And there was one day I hiked 12 miles and never saw another hunter, and didn't kill a bird, but I heard a lot of gobbles. I was in turkeys, had a good hunt, and it's something to that's something in and of itself, is to be able to walk these public lands without a ton of pressure, and enjoy yourself. And the 5th season is nice because these birds have been pressured pretty hard, but you can usually find them that mid-morning, those desperate ones. If you can get a gobble in that mid-morning during 5th season, he wants to find himself a hen, and you can usually get him to play ball then. So, but yeah, good luck. I will definitely be spending a lot of time in the turkey woods myself this spring.
Awesome. Yeah, man, I'll let you know how it turns out.
All right, good luck.
All right, sir, we'll see you later.
See ya.
All right, man. Well, we just want to thank Luke for his time during this busy time of year for him, and being able to sit down and talk to him and get an update on the past couple of years of turkey hunting and the turkey population outlook in Illinois. That was awesome. So thank you so much, Luke. So real quick, we're just going to end the episode with the critter trivia. So last episode, we talked about a part of the turkey that could dictate if it's only on males, and it will dictate their success at mating as well as possible success at a fight. And I was trying to allude that it was a beard, but it's not the beard, because actually female turkeys sometimes can have beards. It's actually the snood. And it's also a name for, I have a Springer Spaniel, and we can You can get like these buffs that you can put around their heads to hold their ears back so they don't fall in their food bowl, and those are also called snoods. So that was the hint I gave. So yeah, so that's going to be the fleshy part that hangs off their beak, and the size of that snood actually dictates how dominant of a bird they'll be when it comes to reproduction and also fending off other males. So we won't be having critter trivia this week, but we will be having a themed episode next week. And I will say, if you're interested in cryptozoology, you might want to tune into that one. So we'll see you next time. Appreciate you listening. And thanks again, Luke. That was awesome. See you later.